Some moments change your life so quietly that you do not realize it at first. Mine began in the stillness of early morning, when the world feels distant and fragile. My name is Mabel, and I am 26 years old. For as long as I can remember, I believed that family meant unconditional love, the kind that shows up no matter what. That belief did not fade slowly. It shattered all at once at exactly 3:15 in the morning. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the Massachusetts General Hospital emergency room, I was lying on a narrow gurney after a violent car crash. My body felt broken in places I could not even name. Every breath sent a sharp wave of pain through my chest, making it hard to stay still. The doctor stood beside me and spoke calmly, explaining that I had internal bleeding and needed emergency surgery. There was urgency in his voice, but also a pause. Years ago, I had a severe reaction to anesthesia, which meant they needed to use a different medical protocol. Because of hospital policy that required family consent, my hands shook so badly that holding my phone felt impossible. I dialed my parents, Robert and Linda. The call went straight to voicemail. I called again, then again, leaving messages that grew more frantic each time. Time dragged forward in slow, painful minutes. My body hurt, but fear hurt more. After nearly an hour, my phone finally lit up. It was a text message from my father. It said that this could wait and that they were busy meeting with clients. Busy. I stared at the screen, trying to understand how those words could exist in that moment. I was being told to delay life-saving surgery because they were busy. Something inside me broke open. A deep, uncontrollable sob tore through my chest, making my injured ribs scream. The physical pain was sharp, but it was nothing compared to the crushing realization that I was completely alone. A male nurse named Ben rushed to my side, followed closely by a social worker named Maria. Their voices were gentle, steady, and real. Maria spoke softly and asked if there was anyone else who could be called. Through tears and shaking breaths, I gave her the only other number I had. My grandpa William, my mother's father. Maria stepped out of the room. When she returned, a few minutes later, she smiled and said he was already on his way and would be there in under an hour. Grandpa William lived 50 miles outside the city. He was 74 years old, retired, and slow to move these days. Still, less than an hour later, he rushed through the emergency room doors. He wore his old flannel shirt, still marked with faint sawdust, like he had left his life behind without a second thought. He came straight to my bedside and wrapped his rough, familiar hands around my uninjured one. He whispered my name, and in that single word lived more love than I had felt in years. He listened carefully as the doctor explained everything. He asked clear, practical questions about the risks and the process. Then he took the clipboard and signed the consent forms without hesitation. As they wheeled me toward the operating room, he leaned down, kissed my forehead, and promised he would be there when I woke up. Hours later, I opened my eyes, groggy and disoriented. The first thing I saw was his shape sitting in the chair beside my bed. His silver hair was messy, and a crossword puzzle rested on his lap. He had stayed. Seeing him there unlocked a flood of memories I had kept buried. Years of quiet neglect suddenly made sense all at once. My parents were respected financial advisors in Newton. They lived in a sleek condo that looked like it belonged on the cover of a magazine. Everything in their world had a price tag, and value was measured in numbers. When I told them I was taking a job as a nonprofit coordinator, my mother smiled tightly and said it was nice but did not really pay. When I proudly showed them my first car, a used Toyota Corolla with 85,000 miles, my father sighed and told me it was time to get serious with my life. Grandpa William was never like that. When my parents skipped my college graduation for a conference in the Bahamas, he was there, sitting in the rain with a small bouquet of daisies. He taught me how to work with my hands, how to shape clay, how to paint ceramics. He always said that anything made with love was worth more than something bought with money. He was the one who showed up. He was always the only one who showed up. 4 days after my surgery, my parents finally visited. They entered my hospital room not with concern, but with visible annoyance. My father checked his phone. My mother handed me a small bag of cheap candy and complained about parking. They stayed exactly 35 minutes. They talked about clients' schedules and work. My father asked when I would be able to return to my job. They left for a dinner reservation. When the door closed, the silence felt heavier than their presence. Later, the doctors discussed my discharge. With my injuries, stairs were not possible. For weeks, panic rose in my chest. Before I could speak, Grandpa William calmly said that I would be going home with him. He explained that his house was one level and that he had already built a ramp. Just like that, it was decided. Living in his small, repaired house felt like breathing clean air. He cooked meals, helped me through therapy, and sat with me through long, quiet hours. At night, I lay awake wondering why I still hoped for a message from my parents. I understood then what learned helplessness meant. I had been trained for years to accept neglect as normal. I was not weak. I was conditioned. As I healed, another problem appeared. A neighbor brought over my mail, stacked high and unopened. Sorting through it at Grandpa William's kitchen table, I found letters that did not make sense. Medical bills, insurance notices, and documents from my disability insurance provider and investment accounts. I called the disability insurance company. After a long wait, a representative explained calmly that they had already been communicating with my financial proxies. The words froze me in place. The representative clarified that those proxies were my parents, Robert and Linda. He said they contacted us. Let's see, 3 days after your accident, they were inquiring about the protocol for liquidating the entire fund. Liquidating, not accessing. Liquidating. My mind flashed back 2 years. I was sitting in my father's sleek glass-walled office. He had insisted on helping mess it up my first real investment portfolio and my supplemental disability insurance. It's just standard procedure, Mabel, he'd said, sliding a pen across the desk. We'll just add me and your mother as financial proxies. It's all part of the family portfolio. Makes it easier to manage. I'd been grateful. I thought he was finally taking an interest in my life, my future. Now I realized he was just setting a trap. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness. It was a cold clinical anger. I hung up with the insurance rep and immediately dialed my father. He answered on the second ring, his voice breezy. Mabel, we were just wondering when you'd be calling. Why did you try to liquidate my disability fund? The silence on the other end was heavy. Now, Mabel, he finally said, his tone shifting to the condescending one used with difficult clients. Listen, the market is down. It's a bad time. We were just looking to restructure your assets. Move that money before it lost value. Move it where, Dad? I pressed, my voice dangerously quiet. It's just a simple restructure. Move it where, Dad? He snapped. The polished veneer cracked and the raw frustration underneath poured out. The firm is having some cash flow issues. If you must. No. It's a temporary loan. You'll get it back. Don't be so dramatic. A temporary loan. He was planning to use the money I needed to survive while I couldn't work to plug a hole in his failing business. This wasn't neglect. This was theft. I hung up the phone. But cold realization was just beginning. It wasn't just a disability fund. I went back to the pile of mail Sarah had brought. My hands sorted through the medical bills, the insurance spam, and then I found it. An official looking envelope from a different bank, one I didn't even have an account with. I tore it open. It was a loan rejection letter, but it wasn't for a credit card. It was a letter declining an application for a home equity line of credit. The address listed on the application was my apartment, my condo. My father had co-signed for my condo 2 years ago. It didn't have enough credit history on me own. And he'd insisted. It's just a formality, Mabel, he'd said, just to help you get started. He had used that formality totally and drained the equity from my home. The application date was 2 days after my accident. While I was in the ICU, he wasn't just trying to liquidate my disability fund. He was actively trying to leverage my home to save his failing business. All the sadness I'd felt in hospital, the learned helplessness, it all evaporated. It was replaced by something sharp and cold and clear. This wasn't a family dispute. This wasn't neglect. This was predation. They were circling my assets like vultures, waiting for me to be weak enough so they could pick me apart. I didn't cry this time. I looked up at Grandpa William, who was watching me from the doorway, his face etched with worry. I didn't have to say a word. I just handed him the letter. He read it, his face growing thunderous. He stared at it for a long, silent minute. Then he put the letter down on the table, walked past me into his small study, and came back holding an old cracked leather address book. Half flipped through the pages, his finger tracing a list of names. And then he picked up the landline phone on Thule. He dialed a number. From memory. Harrison, he said into the phone. It's William. Yes, it's been a long time. I'm good, but I'm calling about my granddaughter. She's in trouble. He listened for a moment, then held the phone out to me. Mr. Harrison will talk to you. I took the phone. Mr. Harrison, a lawyer my grandpa had known for 40 years, listened patiently as I explained everything, my voice steady and cold. He told him about the hospital, the text, the 35-minute visit, and then I told him about the disability fund and the home equity loan application. There was a long silence on the other end. Mabel heavily said, his voice calm and serious. What your parents have done, it's not just unethical, it's potentially fraudulent. They used their position of trust to gain access and they attempted to act on it without your consent while you were incapacitated. We can fix this and we can fix it now. What do we do? I asked. You rest, you heal, he said, and I could hear him scribbling on a legal pad. I am going to draft a full revocation of power of attorney, a cease and desist notification for both of them, and new power of attorney documents naming your grandfather for both medical and financial decisions. I'll have them ready by tomorrow. When I hung up the phone, the betrayal still stung, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of power. This wasn't a family drama anymore. This was a legal fight, and I was finally ready. For weeks to the day after my accident, I called my parents and asked them to come to Grandpa William's house. I was off the painkillers. My mind was clear and I was steady on a pair of crutches. They arrived at PM clearly annoyed. My father Robert walked in first and not even looking at me. Mabel, this is very inconvenient. We have a 3 o'clock showing. Whatever this is, can it be quick? He stopped when he saw the setup in the living room. I was sitting in an armchair, my injured leg propped up. On one side of me sat Grandpa William, his hands folded calmly in his lap. On the other side sat Mr. T. Harrison in a full suit holding a briefcase. My mother Linda saw him and her professional smile faltered. What's going on? Who is this? Please sit down, I said. My voice was even. It surprised me how steady it was. They sat on the sofa opposite me. I reached for a simple manila envelope on the coffee table and slid it toward them. My father scoffed. What's this? More medical bills. These, I said, meeting his gaze, are legal documents. They are a full revocation of any and all power of attorney you hold over me, medical or financial. They are cease and desist notifications, and there are papers that remove you as proxies and beneficiaries from every one of my accounts and insurance policies, effective immediately. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Mabel, no. How could you? After everything we've done for you. My father's face turned a deep blotchy red. The mask of the successful financial advisor was gone. Ungrateful, he yelled, standing up. This is how you repay us. We were trying to protect your assets. The word protecting in the air, so Violet made me sick. I looked at him, not with the anger he was showing, but with a cold, quiet finality. Protect them? I asked. Or liquidate them like how you applied for a home equity loan on my condo while I was in surgery. The room went completely silent. My mother stopped crying. She just stared at me, her mouth open. Mr. Harrison and my grandpa didn't move. My father's face went pale. The rage was gone, replaced by the hello shock of being caught. He sat back down hard. He had nothing to say. He'd been so sure of his own intelligence, so sure of my weakness that he never imagined he'd be held accountable. You don't know the pressure we're under, my mother finally whispered, her voice trembling. The Fermi no, I said, cutting her off. But your failing career isn't my problem. Not anymore. Sign the papers. We sit there and watch people do this and we feel a sense of guilt. We're taught that blood is supposed to be thicker than water. That family is forever. But that's a weapon toxic people use to keep you trapped. They count on your guilt. They count on your sentimentality. They rely on the fact that you'll keep setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. Sometimes letting go of blood ties isn't an act of betrayal. It's the ultimate act of self-preservation. It's not about finding hate. It's about finally choosing to find yourself. It's the moment you stop being their victim and start being your own rescuer. My father, his hands shaking with rage, snatched a pen from his jacket and scribbled his name on the documents. My mother signed after him, her tears staining the paper. They left. They didn't say another word. My father didn't look back. The door closed and the silence in my grandpa's living room was absolute. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 26 years. The weeks that followed were about rebuilding, not just my body, but my entire life. With Mr. Free Harrison's help, I secured me finances. We set up new accounts at a different bank, created new passwords for everything, and put fraud alerts on me credit. I sold the condo. I couldn't stand the thought of living there, knowing my father had seen it as just another asset to strip. I found a small new apartment on the ground floor, one with wide doorways and a small patio. Grandpa William came over and built a sturdy wooden ramp for the entrance. Just until you're steady on your feet, he said. But I knew he built it to last. I went back to my job at the nonprofit. But I wasn't the same person. The experience had forged something new in me. I used what I'd learned, the legal loopholes, the insurance nightmare, the vulnerability of being a patient, and I pitched a new program to my boss. A program that provides free legal and financial advocacy for survivors of major medical events, protecting them from exactly this kind of predatory exposure. My life is quiet now, but it's full. Last night, I hosted dinner in my new apartment. My chosen family was there. Grandpa William was teaching Ben, the nurse from the hospital, how to cheat at cards. My neighbor Sarah brought a pie. We ate. We laughed. And I looked around at the hand-painted ceramic bowls I'd made, now full of food, and shared with people I loved. And that's when I realized I was finally whole. If you're listening to this and you're one of those people who has always felt like you were on the fringes of your own family, I want you to hear something. You are not defined by the love you didn't receive. Your worth is not determined by their inability to see you. You are not a supporting character in their story. You are the lead in yours. Building a family is not about blood. It's about who shows up. It is about who listens. It's about who respects you, who protects you, and how when you are broken sits with you in the dark and then helps you build a ramp. Don't be afraid to let go of what's hurting you. Don't be afraid to choose yourself. Your real family, the one that's waiting for you, will be there to catch you.